I'm out doing a fitness hike, and I've thought a little bit about some of the things I might be doing over the next week as I'm running out of time to get ready for this first section hike of the year. I've got about a week left and I don't feel ready at all. So I'll share with you some of these preparations. I won't go into detail. It'll be background information that you see. Because this is the first trip out for the season, I have to be extra careful and make sure that some of the gear that I haven't used in a couple of months are in good shape. So I'm going to take a look at my water filtration system, make sure that's in working order. I want to make sure my sleeping pad's in good order. I'm going to take a look at my fuel canister, make sure I have enough and I'm ready. And then I'm going to look at my shelter components. So those are some of the big things I'm going to spend time with. But I'm also going to look at my itinerary. I'm going to think about my meal planning. I want to take a look at the weather. There's a lot to do, but not so much time to get ready. So I'm going to pack a little bit into this. And then anything that I can't fit into this video, I'll put in another one. I'm going to start by checking the flow in my Sawyer water filter. Quite often over the winter season, the filter gets dried out, it doesn't flow as well, maybe there's a little bit of dirt caught in there, but I'm pretty happy with what I see so far. We're off to a good start. The thorough process would involve dropping some bleach or vinegar drops into the filter, letting that soak through a little bit, flushing it out, and then if it still wasn't flowing, I'd submerge the entire water filter in water, cover it up with water, and then keep it held down maybe with a full bottle of water and let it soak even overnight. If you have a Sawyer, you know that you can use this plunger tool to flush out the Sawyer. That's what it's designed for. It's quite easy to use, but this is how you would get the dirt out of it when you're cleaning it. And you shouldn't wait till the end of the season to do that. This is something you should do after every trip, or if you're a thru hiker, of course, you would do it maybe once a week when you're in town and have access to good, clean water that you can put through and back flush. If you are a Katahdin bee-free user, great product, people love the flow. I will say though that it can require the same type of maintenance. This filter can become slow moving if it dries up too much, and you might require that same soaking experience that I would do with a Sawyer, recommend with a Sawyer. So bee-free does not mean maintenance-free. So something to consider, check that out. The other thing I would say about the Katahdin, although I don't use it, it's more kind of my backup water filter because I have the Sawyer and it's worked well for me as long as I maintain it. I will say, when I used this the first time, the water tasted horrible because it just had a plastic smell to it and taste to it. So rinse it out a few times before you use it, and make sure that any water you put in there is going to taste okay. Next on my list of things to do is to check out my fuel canisters to make sure that the smaller one I prefer to take has enough fuel in it. Now, I think I took care of this again maybe at the end of the year or sometime over the winter. This feels pretty full, but I'll double check and make sure. So generally what you're going to do is use this fuel-to-fuel canister device or one like it to take fuel from a larger canister and put it in a smaller canister. Not only does it cost less because you're buying a more efficient size here, but you're carrying less weight, smaller volume here if you're taking just what you need for your trip. So this trip coming up is actually a longer hike for us, so I am considering maybe taking a second container for the second half of the trip or bringing this along to transfer some when we stop for resupply. Now, step one in this process is going to be to take this smaller canister and put it in the freezer or the refrigerator for a few minutes just to create a vacuum here. The cooler, more condensed air in here will create a suction when we put it in, the valve in place. Then this warmer canister with the warmer air will help to facilitate, the vacuum will facilitate sucking the air from here into here, not the air, but the fluid into here. So not everyone is familiar with the idea of putting this in a cooler temperature location. If you have that option to do that, it simply helps the transfer go more quickly. All right, I am not going to do a step-by-step here. I'm just going to go through the process. My recommendation to you is, if you find something, a fuel transfer system that works for you, read the directions, look at the product website, and figure out how to do it there. I'm just going to go ahead and go through this process. Again, my goal isn't to necessarily educate you here on the precise way of doing this, because you need to be responsible for your own process, your own system, and learn how to do it. I've done this a couple times, and I have made mistakes along the way, so definitely recommend. I can hear it transferring. The other thing I'll do is I'll try to snag a picture of a chart, basically, that a Boy Scout troop put together that indicates how full your canister is based on the size and the weight. So you can use a kitchen scale to actually weigh your canister and get a good idea. Now, the manufacturers sometimes put a system on the side where you can see, based on how much float there is, if you put it into water, how full the canister is. It's not terribly precise. It's a gauge, a reference. So I really do like the ability to weigh something on the kitchen scale and see just where I am in terms of how full my canister is. Okay, like I said, this is pretty full. I do hear some fuel transferring. I'm gonna let it sit another minute, and then I'm gonna get out my kitchen scale, weigh it, and see what the Boy Scouts say about how full this is. All right, and before I take this off, I'm going to make sure that this transfer mechanism is closed. And let's see how we did. Okay, according to both the canister and the chart for this 110 gram MSR Isopro canister, the gross weight, which means the weight of the canister itself and the fluid inside, should be 211 grams to be full. I'm at over 230, so I'd say I'm more than okay with leaving this as is. And I'm guessing that, yes, sometime over the winter, I did fill this up. So I'm good to go. No more need to force this anymore. All right, and this is step one of my food planning process. I actually put stickies on the table for every day I'm gonna be out on trail. This is probably the longest we've been out on trail since doing our section hiking. So I've never used the full length of this table to do this process before. And we do have a resupply in here. So what I am going to do after I fill in all of the rows with breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, everything for the second half is probably going to go into a bare canister that will either be in my buddy's car for the resupply, or if for some reason somebody has to leave early, that bare canister can be hidden somewhere so we can get to it for the rest of the trip. All right, so here's some of the things I'm going to be selecting from in order to complete my dinners. What I typically do is I look to see how many servings. So this is one serving, it can go in there, but I might decide to repackage it so that I don't have this much space taken up by the packaging. And something like this, it has 2 servings. It takes some time because you want to get the ingredients evenly distributed, but I'll try to split that into 2 and put it into a bag. This is something that I really enjoy as a hearty, good soup. And as you can see, it's 8 servings, so this takes considerable time. But what I do is I do separate this out so that I really love the flavor of this, and it only requires adding water. So it's a great option. There's another soup that the Bear Creek brand makes that only requires adding water, and that's more of, I think, a noodle type soup. So something that you might want to look at. All right, and I'll show you the final product again, but I just wanted to give you an idea. I don't do hydrating my own meals only because I don't have the skill or time or equipment, but certainly would advocate for that if I had the opportunity. For breakfast coffee, I have 2 strategies. One is I take a Maxwell House instant, French vanilla or something like that, hazelnut coffee, and use that for my morning coffee. Or I get some kind of packs of coffee and I mix that with some breakfast essentials, and that if it's vanilla flavored, then that gives me my creamer and as well as some nutrition along with that. So generally what I would do is, I might not break this down into smaller packs, but I'll leave it in a Ziploc or something and fold it over, but I don't generally use an entire pack every day. Maybe a half a pack to go with my cup of coffee in the morning. And so I just take a couple of these along with me. These are the sleeping pads I'll be selecting from for this trip. This one I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. This is my normal sleeping pad for the summer season. This is kind of a step up from that in terms of comfort, but it's also a step up in terms of weight. So maybe for a shorter trip where I'm looking for a little bit more luxury. And then this is my winter sleeping pad. It is, of course, heavier. The good news is it's comfortable, but it also takes up a lot more space, and that's the problem with my winter gear is I need a bigger pack for winter backpacking because I don't have space for my gear. So my pack will look overloaded. I will be stressing it quite a bit. I am going to be opening this up and pumping it up and putting my weight on it just to make sure that it does hold the air and that I'm set to go for a comfortable night's sleep. All right, sleeping pad is doing well. My pillow, inflatable pillow, I usually put a buff on it. I might be using this buff for other things, but I find when I put this on my pillow, which I do not fully inflate for comfort, when I put it on here, it doesn't slide as much with a buff on it. Likewise, I don't fully inflate the sleeping pad because it does make it more comfortable. You don't want it too deflated, but fully inflated can be a little less comfortable. And I also have my Cocoon Mummy liner. I have my little booties. These are enlightened equipment and my 20-degree bag. So with that, hopefully I'm all set to go. That was a lot of content to take in, so happy to stop here. What I'll do is I'll come back in a second video, take a look at the continuation of my meal plan, share that with you. I'll also take a look at my shelter system, talk a little bit about that equipment and how I review that and make sure everything's square there. And in addition, I'll come back and take a look at my itinerary and share with you how I think about preparing for the overall trip. And actually, that's the first thing I do.